Welcome to Sleek Notes E-Commerce Boost Podcast, your chance to learn from the e-commerce experts so you can boost your business.
Hello to everybody who's listening to this episode of E-Commerce Boost. Pat yourself on the back for tuning in today because you're about to learn the art of customer-centric conversion optimization, brought to you by Talia Wolf, who will explain how to conduct successful surveys, how to adapt to the fact that people buy with their emotions, and oh yeah, hear the story of why she loves jumping out of planes. So Talia, welcome so much on this show. I'm really excited to have you here. If you can just start out by introducing yourself, that would be really good.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I am a conversion optimization specialist. And what I do is I help businesses all over the world, specifically e-commerce sites and retailers, optimize their websites. So basically turn more traffic into conversions and sales.
Yeah, cool. And if you were to say something about yourself that your bias, your bio doesn't state, what would that be?
Oh, well, well, I focus a lot on consumer psychology, emotional targeting, and design. So persuasive design is more correct. Something that isn't in my bio. I'm a skydiver, so I've jumped out of the plane more than 1,000 times, just for the fun of it.
Well, cool. How come?
I just love it. Oh, it's a very long story, but I really love it. And yeah, it's great. It's a lot of fun. It's a great adrenaline rush and a great way to zone out and not think about anything else but the moment you're in.
Can you just give the short version of that story? Now I'm intrigued.
Yeah, it's actually a story that I like to tell when I do presentations. So one of the main pillars and foundations of my methodology is that people are irrational and we buy things irrationally. Every time we make a decision in life, everything we buy has an emotional reason to it. Essentially, we buy better versions of ourselves. And I know that people hate to be called irrational. So I always give this example about myself of doing something completely irrational. So my biggest fear in life is flying. I hate planes. I really hate planes. But yet I still did skydiving 7 years ago. And I'd love to say that the reason I did that was because I was some, adrenaline junkie, or I've always wanted to jump out of the plane. But it was actually for a guy. I just wanted to impress this guy. I thought he was a skydiving instructor, and I thought, he'll see me, he'll think I'm cool. And that will be that. Long story short, he is now married to someone else, and I have continued to be a skydiver. But it really is, it's amazing. There was no rational reason behind it. There was no reason for me to jump out of that plane. But because I wanted to be a better version of myself, I wanted to be that cool, adrenaline junkie, cool person. And I wanted other people to think that about me. That made me jump out of a plane. And that's, it's the gist of how emotional we are, and how we, tend to buy on emotion.
Oh, amazing. That's like the coolest story of why people jump out of planes ever, just for a guy. I love it. We're going to come back to the whole emotion thing later because today's topic is customer-centric conversion optimization. So I really want to know, just to begin with, how is that different from, let's say, regular conversion optimization?
Yeah. So I've been doing conversion optimization for many years. And when I started out, I didn't really know what I was doing. And I knew that I wanted to, basically deliver more conversions for my clients. And what I was doing is I was looking at Google Analytics. I knew where the leaks in the funnel were, but I had no idea how to optimize them. And what I basically do is I guess. I'd read random blog posts. I'd follow all sorts of best hacks. I'd follow what the competitors are doing, and I'd kind of guess my way through to optimization. And then what I end up doing is like changing a call to action button or changing the headline or, changing specific elements on a website. People like to call it tinkering with your website. And I'd never, ever get the results that I want. I mean, I would increase conversions, but not the way I really dreamt I could. And when I finally kind of got sick of that, I realized that the problem is that I knew how to find the leak in the funnel, but I didn't know how to fix it. And for doing that, I needed a process. And it was when I understood that conversion optimization isn't about just changing elements on a page, but it's about solving your customers' problems. That's when I actually got the results that I wanted. And what I actually did is I built an entire process that's customer-centric. And what I mean by that is I dive deep into understanding who my customers are, what are their concerns, what are their hesitations, what are they worried about, and how can I fix that on the page? What are their emotional drivers? Why are they actually on the page? We love to say, we love to talk about ourselves in terms of the pricing that we have, the products that we're selling, the features that we have. We're constantly talking about us, but people don't usually buy products. What they buy is better versions of themselves, right? We mentioned that before. So for me, my goal is to constantly drive and try and understand who is my customer, why are they on my website, what are their problems? How can I solve them? And then once I know those emotional drivers, why they're buying from us, it's easier for me and so much simpler to choose the right colors, the right images, the right copy, the right social proof, everything that will optimize that page and fix that leak. And that's actually, once I started doing that, and I wasn't testing elements, I was testing strategies, I was testing emotional drivers, that's when I actually got those record-breaking results that I wanted. And I'm talking about 10 times the conversions for my clients. I think it's an average of 160% increase in revenue per client just by focusing on that method.
Do you know your customer? If your answer is yes, think again, because you probably don't. Hear Talia explain how to go beyond customer personas and data. The answer's obvious, but it's absolutely key.
Right, so the interesting thing is that if I ask you now, who is your customer? Most people will give me a list of behavioral elements. Their age, their geographical location, the browser they're using, the device. Maybe they've built personas in the past, so they have a sort of guess of, this person, he's 37 years old, he lives in the suburbs, and he loves to watch whatever program. But it's very technical. We forget that there's people behind the screens and not numbers. So once you actually go beyond the data and the numbers, and here's the interesting things, people keep telling you to be data driven, but what you actually should be is customer driven. So the best way to start is to actually speak to your customers. Now, this sounds so obvious. It sounds like everyone should be doing this. Obviously, everyone's doing it. But if you're sitting here and you're listening to this right now and you do not do it, know that you are one of millions of companies in the world that do not speak to their customers. And what I mean by speak, it's surveys, chat, phone interviews, email correspondence, like literally reaching out to your clients and customers and asking them questions to really identify what are their pain points, why they chose you, what is the real reason behind their purchase, what their concerns were there before they purchased, how are they, how are you changing their life, what would they do today if you took away their product, how would they feel, what would they miss most, really asking the important questions. And just by doing that, that is the first step to being customer centric, because essentially what you're doing is if you send a survey out to 100 people and you get questions, you get answers, you're going to be able to start mapping out the different patterns that keep coming up. People are saying the same things. People are worried about different things. And the really cool thing about this step, and this is just one of many, but it's the most important one. The best thing about this step is that if you write copy, if you have to sit in front of the page and decide, what's my headline going to be? What's my paragraph going to be about? What is the text going to be? You actually don't have to stare at that blank page and make up words. Because if you look at your customers' answers, you'll see all the copy in there. You can use their words, their language to tell people what you do, why they should buy from you. I mean, if you look at it this way, at the end of the day, when you're selling something, you know that it is the best solution for your customers and people should choose you. Your only goal is to get other people to notice that too. And the only way to do that is by understanding what they care about, what matters to them most. And it really is not your features or your pricing, not at first. What people care about first is, do you solve their pain? Are you the one, when they land on your landing page or your website, or they see your first ad on Facebook, do you get their pain? And are you the one who's going to solve it? After you have grabbed their attention, then they will read, they will convert, and they will get to the pricing and the features and everything. But first you need to capture their attention. And the only way to do that is by first speaking to them. And there's so many ways to do this, right? You mean, as I said, there's surveys, there's chat, there's interviews. You can offer gifts to people who answer. And there's so many great ways to do it. But that is probably the first step that I would take if I were you and I was just getting started.
Sure, but surely there must be a method of asking the right kind of questions. Because if someone asks me, what's your pain? Then, I don't really know. I think I'm good, I reckon. So are there any best practices as to how to ask your customers so they answer in a way that you get response that you can use for something?
Yeah, definitely. So great question, by the way, because as I said at the beginning, we love to think of ourselves as rational beings. And what that means is that we buy on emotion and we justify by rationality. And what that means is, so if you go into a store today and you buy a really expensive, headphones that you need to use. And you could have bought a cheaper one, but you end up buying the more expensive one. You'll buy on emotion. Your mind will make it up for you before you even think about it. And then you'll justify it by saying, well, they were on, there was a sale. I really needed them. I deserve it after a really hard month of working. And you kind of rationalize the purchase. Now, that's what happens when you also speak to people. So if someone buys on emotion from you and you ask them, why did you buy it? They're going to say, well, you had the best features, or you were the least expensive, or maybe you'll get a cool answer like, oh, I heard your support is good. If you really want to dig into those pains and emotions, you don't ask people what their pain is. You start by asking simple questions like, what made you sign up today? Now, the first thing I'll say is something really superficial that doesn't help you. And that's when the 5 whys come into place. This is actually a really cool technique that I learned a couple of years back. And the way it works is when someone answers your question, you say, why? So if someone says, well, we bought because you had these amazing features, and you say, okay, great, but why did you need those features? And they might say, well, because these and these products don't have them, and I wanted something different for this and this reason. And you say, okay, but why did you need this something different? What made you feel that the stuff that you have right now doesn't answer your problems? And then they'll say, well, I wanted to X, Y, and Z. And the more you ask why, the more they actually dig deeper into that emotional reason, right? The more they understand, even they actually create clarity for themselves and for you on why they actually purchased that product. And if you'd like, I'll give you an example from a case study that we did. So it was for a presentation company, a B2B company that sells a presentation software. So you can create presentations with it. And we went back to clients and we said to them, a B2B company, what persuaded you to sign up? And obviously they said, well, you had the most features. And I said to them, okay, so why do you need these features? And they said, I needed something different than PowerPoint or Google Slides. And I said, well, why would you need that? I mean, PowerPoint and Google Slides are free, right? They've got great features. Why would you need something different? And their answer was, and this is the interesting part, I wanted to create something memorable and different. Now, this is where we're getting somewhere. And the question is, of course, why? Why do you need to create something memorable? Or more importantly, why do you need to create something different? And their answers were, and this varied because we asked so many people, but the gist of it was, I want to stand out. I want to be appreciated by my peers and managers. I want them to remember my work. And that's bingo. That's why people buy our product, their product, because they wanted to stand out. They wanted their managers to notice them. They wanted their team to notice them. And that is the emotional driver. They care what other people think about them. They wanted to stand out and show that they are better than other people. So that when you're designing, you don't want to say, hey, we have the best presentation platform. You want to say, hey, this is the platform that's going to help you shine. And this is the platform that's going to help you stand out and create memorable presentations that everyone's going to be talking about for years, right? That is the emotional trigger. And I did it by asking why 3 times. And anyone can do this. It's so simple.
It sounds like you sat down personally and interviewed the customers. Is that true?
Yeah. So the way it works is we start by contacting the customers via a survey. And the great thing is that when people answer, you can say, do you mind coming on for a 10-minute chat? Here's a coupon for a coffee at Starbucks, for example. And that's a great way to get people on the phone. And the reason you want that is because you want to hear their tone and voice. You want to talk to them and you want to be able to hear them and hear their pain.
Okay, so once you sit down with your customers, you find out all of this amazing information, you have to sit down and then redo your website or your emails or whatever, so you speak to your customers. And I know you feel strongly about a certain something called color psychology. How come?
Yeah. So the thing that's great is that once you identify the emotional triggers, once you identify the hesitations, the concerns, and the problems of your customers, it's actually easier, or your clients, it's easier to create a better variation to test. That includes color psychology, cognitive biases, new copy, new social proof, and many other elements. The thing I have with color psychology is that everyone loves to talk about it. And they like to pretend, or it's not pretend, it's just something that people don't understand, that it's not that every color has its own purpose and only that. So it's not that blue always means trust and green doesn't always mean health. Color psychology works on different levels, and you can't just use the same color for everything. And what I mean by that is you can't just say, oh, I'm going to use blue because everyone else is using it and it means trust. What you want to do is really research your clients and your customers, because people are affected by color, and color affects them on 3 different levels, and that's emotional, symbolic, and by experience. Emotional, experience, and culture. So these things, like the culture, is so important. White, the color white, does not mean the same in Asia or in Europe. The color red does not mean the same. So you can't use these colors in the same way for everyone. So you actually have to understand them better. And the reason I kind of get annoyed about it is because you get all these best practices, which I'm so against best practices, that tell you what to do with color psychology. So I just urge you, before you say, oh, I'm going to use this color to create this emotion, to actually know your customers, back and forth, and really know them well in order to use color the right way.
And then I guess we're back to ask your customers, right?
Yeah, well, there's also, this is when you look in Google Analytics and you say, hey, where are they from? Then what is their geographical location, And then also, of course, you speak to your customers, you ask them about their culture, you ask them about their experiences, you ask them about the symbols that they use. And that helps you definitely understand better who they are and what colors to use for them.
Perfect. And Talia, so I want to know, what tool or tactic would you absolutely not be without? Because surely there must be like the one thing that you love more than any other.
Well, definitely the go-to is interviewing my customers and clients. The second thing is doing competitor research. I love going onto competitors' websites and looking at the reviews and the social proof that they're getting. That helps me see what the people that should be buying from my client and are buying from someone else, what they care about. And I can use that on my website. So if people are constantly complaining about one thing in their reviews, and especially for retailers, use that to say that you provide X and Y and Z before people have that concern that you don't. So that's another tactic that I love using.
Interesting. So finally, I'm really interested in knowing who's your personal hero? Is there anyone you look up to in the marketing industry that you just think is doing a really good job that the listeners should check out?
I have a few of those. So my favorite are the following: Joanna Wiebe of Copy Hackers. I've got Gia Laudi, Claire Savalentrop, Nicole Elizabeth Demira, and Tiffany De Silva. They are my favorite experts to follow, and I really urge everyone to follow them. They each cover a different topic in growth, and it can really help you with copy, with growth hacking, with SaaS, with B2B marketing and retail. They've got just so many amazing things, and they are great, great women that everyone should be following.
Fantastic. And just a heads up, we have a podcast episode with Joanna Wiebe. I spoke to her a few months ago. She is really cool. Yeah, so Talia, I guess that was everything. Is there anything you wish I'd ask you before we end?
No, I think we've covered everything. It was great speaking to you. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to contact me via Twitter on TaliaGW or on my website, getuplift.co.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time, Talia.
Thank you.
Rightio, that was it. Now, if you enjoyed this episode, please leave a nice rating. It takes just around 10 seconds if you're logged into iTunes, and it makes me more than thrilled. Thanks, folks.
This session of E-Commerce Boost was produced by Sleeknote. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on tactics and strategies that'll help boost your e-commerce.